Well, welcome back, modelers. So, I wasn't going to do a build review video of this. I was going to just kind of build it, maybe submit an article somewhere or something. But it's enough of a popular product that I thought share a little bit of my findings from the Das Werk U9 Unterseeboot. If I'm getting that any bit correct. Sure my dad will correct me in the comments. So with this project, I love submarines. If you want to get into shipbuilding but want to get into something that is quite a bit more simple, you don't have a lot of like guns and rigging and whatnot generally, this is the way to do it. So getting into a World War I subject has a lot of interesting stuff in here. So let's go over what I did and how I went about building this thing. So the project itself, the process that I went through is pretty standard for a lot of the aircraft that I build. I have to be careful. This thing is pretty big, so I'm going to knock into something. But I use the same kind of technique I use for a lot of aircraft where we get into kind of a black basing and stencil marbling kind of technique to it. And so I've got a lot of that on it to start out. And when I built it, I actually goofed. I forgot that the lower part of the hull is actually the darker color, whatever it is, XF77 or something like that. So I went in and had to correct that. Then I went in and did a lot of panel line washes, and it was very stark. Looked very black along the lines. So with some feedback online, what I did is I followed it up with some white oils and a lot of stippling motion. And so that's where you kind of get into, there's some kind of salt corrosion, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not like a major shipbuilder if you've seen my videos. The amount of ships I've built is like on one hand, pretty much. And they're usually much smaller scale than this. So this is out of my comfort zone for sure. But yeah, so I'm figuring some of this white is just kind of a salt corrosion kind of weathered effect where you have salt going on with that. And then similar approach that we get onto the top. And so I get into there. A little more pronounced in some areas where it's a little bit more high traffic. So I put that into there. And then the conning tower was very fun. So I put in just some rust streaking going on with it where I figure it's in and out of the ocean all the time. And so it's going to be if there's any chipping that goes on with it, so we get into some chipping here, then you're going to have some rust streaks going on with that. But I don't want it to be looking kind of derelict or anything like that, so I wanted to present it as such. So we get into that, and then a lot of the chipping is just like what you would see on a lot of armor. So we get into, I put in and painted a lighter color, and then did some chipping color below that to have the kind of iron show through. So that's how I got into chipping. You can see plenty on the snorkel, which the snorkel also goes down, but kind of cool up in that position. So we got into that. The fabric on there was one of the coolest things about this kit. So I used a lot of pre-shading, and then I got into oils to give it that shadowy effect with also a little bit of grunge. Because, yeah, I can only imagine canvas and ocean, how waterproof that is over time. And then I just did my standard oil over kind of a tan paint for this wood base that we have on here. And I was thinking about maybe chipping it and having the wood show through the paint, which is probably a little more realistic. But instead I wanted to give it a lot of contrast by just leaving it wood. So I've got that in there too. There's not much you can see with like looking down the hatches, but maybe If somebody has like a flashlight, they can kind of see a little bit of the railing. So there's some interesting things in there with that. And that's the basic part of the build. So getting into the weathering, different chipping and effects that we have going all through there. Decals went on great. A lot of options there. And then let's move to the base. So for the base, I wanted to do something different than what they have in the instruction. So I wanted to paint it a little bit of a bronze look. And I might have to put on like another clear coat to kind of bring it all together. So you can kind of see a little bit of contrast between shiny and dark. But I wanted that to be more kind of like here. So I might have to put in another gloss coat just to kind of blend it all together. But I wanted it to look kind of an antique bronze. And so that's the effect, which maybe the other side looks a little better. There you go. Just forget the last 15 seconds and just look at this side. This side looks a lot better. So I think I just need to tie it all together a little bit with a gloss coat, and that would go in. So the U9 is a decal. They give you a couple options for the decal on it. And so want to give that effect where we're putting it on an actual metallic stand, brass stand. Okay, last, the rigging. And I was on the fence about doing any of the rigging. There's a lot of people out there that have built this that just kind of said, no, until they have a good aftermarket or something, I'm not going to do it. The original rigging that it comes with is pretty flimsy. Not the best to do any attachment with it. So what I did is I created my own. So this is brass tubing that some of it is glued, some of it is soldered. And then to help it out a little bit more, see if I can get this to actually focus in properly. It's probably not going to. But getting in, and I have some little eyelets that I made, and those are from crimp beads. You can kind of get it jewelry or steal from your significant other. So you have that there, and that's what helped out with the rigging to kind of put that in. And the rigging is just easy line. So we also got the rigging going on with the back here. This is where you get into the turnbuckles. And turnbuckles that came with the kit seem pretty oversized, but still pretty cool. And so wanted to use them. There's probably going to be some aftermarket, but you know, I got this as a pre-order from Andy's Hobby, and so I got it on the first batch, and there's probably going to be some amazing photo etch to the point where I might rip out some of these masts and put them in. I don't know. Probably don't care, to be honest. So the masts for the rear were whatever these strengthening buckle. I don't know really what the purpose of these are, but obviously they have to be on tension. That's all I know. And so with that, I put brass square tube, not tubing, just square rod to strengthen that. And then I put those same eyelets on it, and then easy line, and just rig that in. So that's how I did that. And then the decal that came with it, I just attached that over just aluminum foil, and just kind of have that effect where it's kind of blowing in a little bit of a breeze. So that's it. Very fun project. If I did again, I'd probably just put this as having the rigging and the antennas down, because a couple of these can be. These are, I think, for communication wire, so like they actually fold down. You can see where they kind of go into in these points here. So I probably would have just elected to do that and kind of simplify it and not worry about some of the stuff on this, and just try to make it more of a fun build, because the funnest part on this by far, the weathering. Everything went together quite smooth. The only thing that I had a problem with when building, and others had this, is lining up with this. And I found out after the fact that these should be smooth. There shouldn't be a line in there, a seam. So If I care enough, I might have to go back in and actually file them down or something. I don't I don't know. You guys can tell me. I don't think it's something that I'd bring to nationals. It was fun, cool project, and a lot of interesting stuff going on with the weathering that was fun. But I don't know. I think it's just gonna be a mantelpiece or something like that. But that is my Das Werk Unterseeboot U9, whatever 9 is in German. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any more further questions on some of the technique that I also did for some of the weathering, especially for like the hull. I'm going to put in a few photos and whatnot left next so you can kind of see it in high resolution and not in my shaky camera or anything like that. But yeah, so stay tuned for the pictures next.